All right, here's what we're going to do tonight. For the last couple of weeks, we've been focusing on finding people. We've talked about your warm market, making your list. Last week, we focused in on having a booth or hosting a booth in a health fair or a business fair. And tonight, we're going to cover networking meetings. And as we talked about last week, I think it was the week before actually, we talked about building your network. And that's really what it's all about. It's about building your network inside of GIA, and it's also about building your warm network outside of GIA. And there's so many ways to do that. And as I look at networking and building a network, the way I look at it is that I build a group of friends and people that are connected to me, who know what I do, who help me get the word out about what we do at GIA Wellness. And so you can do that almost every day, all day, just by being out there with people, or you can be absolutely on purpose and attend networking meetings. And so tonight, we have several people with us, and I can see their beautiful faces as I'm looking at the camera. I'm sure many of you probably have been to networking meetings, but tonight I've asked Donald and Leslie and Susan to help us. I know that they are they've been very serious about building a network inside and using networking meetings to not only to build GIA, but to build their own practices and their own businesses. So Donald, I'd like to turn it over to you, and tonight if we can just talk about things that people need to know to be successful at attending and utilizing networking meetings, some of the do's and the don'ts, maybe where to find them, and then maybe talk about how long it might take for something like that to start to, I don't want to use the word, no, I won't even use the word, to work for you, and how long that might take, and Susan and Leslie jump in and help out any way that you can. Donald? Unmute yourself first. I got it.
You got me. All three of us have done quite a bit. Leslie has actually been the education coordinator for a chapter, a networking meeting for the last year. And so she'll have some very great information to talk about from her educating everybody in the chapter about how to do networking. So she'll be very special. The things that I think that the networking, the thing to stress on a networking meeting is that instead of it being something where you're going to get an instant return, it's an opportunity to develop relationships. So it's just like if you're going to do social marketing, social media, or any other kind of thing you're doing, it's finding out more about the other person. And many of the meetings will give you an opportunity to meet somebody, and then what you want to do is set up a time outside of the meeting to spend an hour or so with each other to find out more about their business and how you're able to support them. In that process, they'll probably ask about what you're looking for and what they can do for you. And so in that sense, you're going to develop an exchange. The time that it takes is an investment. And although in the chapter that I was in, there was, because people wanted to find out about what I was doing, there was probably an instant number of people that came through my practice to just try out what I was doing, to find out what I'm doing. But as far as them referring other people, that's the sort of a thing that probably takes a little bit of more time of developing relationship. Does that answer your question pretty well?
Yeah. What I want to know, let's start at the beginning. What kind of vehicles are out there for networking? I mean, I know there's BNI, but there's other things out there. Do you know of any way, how would you go about it? If you were going to go right now and try to find a networking group, another one in your area, what would you do?
Well, chambers of commerce are always really good. So that's a great place to go too. And there's a couple of different types of networking meetings. There's some that are closed in the sense that there's only one person of each category in a meeting, and that's like BNI. You can visit any BNI even if there's someone doing your same category in the meeting. So you shouldn't let that stop you. And there are probably people that you can find out more about that you might want to give them business, so that would be useful in any case.
So can I ask you a question about that, Donald? the idea about being closed, meaning your own, there's only like one in each category. That means a realtor.
One realtor, one massage therapist, one acupuncturist, one chiropractor, one something like that.
And so with Gia, are you in one category of health, or are you in one category of nutrition? How does that work when you have several?
Well, I played it pretty tricky. I was the massage therapist in the chapter, and then I transferred into environmental wellness, which is in health and wellness. But there was nobody that had that particular. There was nobody in the whole place that would have a category like that. So I could pretty much go to any meeting I wanted to.
Okay, so BNI is a closed. We're talking about BNI, I assume. It's
Yes.
a closed group. But there are other networking opportunities. Maybe Leslie and Susan, do you know of other, if someone wanted to get involved with networking now, where would they look and what would you suggest that they do? Leslie?
Well, one of the things that I just did is I started to look through Meetup, which is an app, and there's lots of different, all kinds of things going on. You know, people who like to salsa dance to, you know, just, I mean, there's an amazing variety of stuff available. And I was looking specifically for networking groups, and it tends to sort for you. If you look at one, it'll tend to start aggregating ones that are similar. Because, you know, there's data behind them. So, for example, next week I'm going to, it's a women's meetup PDX, and it's quarterly. And these typically are free or minimally, minimal contribution. You know, you bring something to the meeting. So that, that's been my, the one that's not going to the chamber. I actually went to the chamber a couple of weeks ago, and I met 3 people who I ended up doing one-to-ones with and getting speaking engagements. So that's another way to, use that networking opportunity is especially if you've worked a topic up that you can talk on. I feel that one of the things that networking in a formal way at BNI taught me, or still teaches me, I guess, is to have, a very short way to talk about yourself, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, so that you can have these different ways to talk about what it is you're doing, and to have different sort of focused discussions. So that's something that for me has meant that when I go out to meetups, if they say, well, everyone gets 2 minutes, then I know how to encapsulate what it is I'm saying about what it is I'm doing, who I'm looking for. It's Donald mentioned, the one-to-ones. That's really the best place to do the follow-up. And it's an automatic, people who network regularly, one-to-ones is something they understand. We're going to get together, we'll have coffee, and you're looking to see how you can benefit them. And that's part of the philosophy is you're not going there to sell them something, certainly not, but you're going there to find out what kinds of things they're interested in. It's the same thing that we do when we're, before we even have somebody who is a prospect. We just are curious about them. So, and meetups are a great way to do that. Thinking of at least...
Can I ask you a question about meetups?
You bet.
Now, if we went online and looked up meetups, you could find a meetup for just about anything that you like to do. At least that's my experience. I mean, if you like to ski or you like to play pickleball or whatever.
Yep.
So just getting together with people who are interested in things that you're interested in, that's networking, right?
Yes.
And it's just getting around people. And I think sometimes the best networking is doing things you really, really like to do.
And I mean, like pickleball.
That's exactly right. That's what I say every day. I'm going to my networking meeting.
That's right. And I think that for the most part, our energy is better when we're doing something we enjoy. And I think the other thing that that was really important for me to understand was that my visibility, meaning showing up and being consistent, led to my credibility. And then, of course, there's business that will come from that. When people see that, you show up, you do what you say, whether it's coming to a meeting at 7 in the morning or whether it's, being there for a one-to-one, those are all behaviors that tell someone that, more about your product, your business, and how you work than any words could.
Mm-hmm.
It's how we show up, literally.
Right.
So I think that's a great idea, to find stuff you like to do or stuff you always wanted to learn to do and go out and do it. And I think that, what happens with all of us as humans is we bond over our weaknesses and our as much as we bond over our strengths. So if, for example, if you go to a meeting where you don't dance salsa very well, there's got to be somebody else who is learning also. And so there's a lot that, what did I want to say? There's a lot to how we show up.
Mm-hmm.
If we come with the idea that we're prospecting, looking for people, we already know that that's not the right mind. That's not a good mindset to take to any meeting. The idea.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go into this, because I think that's really, really important. I want to go. Thanks, Leslie. Appreciate that. I love the meetup idea. Susan Kibbe, I know you've been going to a meeting probably a long, long time, as long as I've known you, I think. What kind of a networking meeting do you go to now?
I have gone to many different iterations of networking, and I want to mention one. I used to belong to the chamber, and it wasn't a good match for me. However, if chambers around the country are the same as the one in Olympia, here's a really good tip, which I love, and that is, well, belonging to the chamber comes with a lot of responsibility and a fair amount of dues. But in my area, they have 2 meetings that are free. One is called the Morning Mixer, and everybody just comes to mix over coffee and treats. And the other one is Business After Hours. And in my area, there are 3 of them actually, because there's 3 small towns combined together, well, 2 along with Olympia. So I can go to those anytime and get good food and really good conversation. So there's no structure. It's just people milling around over whatever the host business decides to serve. So it's really worth looking up, especially if you're on a big budget and you want to go to some place where there's people there to network. It's called Morning Mixer or Business After Hours. And those are really fun for me because it's fun and food and people. And let's see, what else I was going to say.
You said those are free?
Yes. The chamber
Free
is
is
not
good.
free, but in our area, we're welcome to go to those chamber events without being a member. And so you sign in with your tag, that's member tag, non-member tag, and they don't really care.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really worth investigating for people, like I say, who want to go do networking and don't want to spend the money to keep up a membership. And those are, of course, what we call non-exclusive. So there can be as many lawyers or as many anythings as show up. It's not restricted. When I'm at a meeting like I was today, it's a once-a-month meeting, and the only cost for it is to buy lunch at this restaurant. We've got our own little private room. And I always have a little notebook, so when I'm listening to people give their whatever their spiel is, whether it's 10 seconds, 15 seconds, a minute. Today it was, I think, 45 seconds, depending on how many people show up. I take notes on what they've said, the ones that are of interest, which I think appear like it would be a good invitation for a one-on-one. So the real meat of what goes on happens outside of the meeting, and me taking notes on what they've said, what they're up to, that I think would be a good, that I might be able to promote them, because I always ask when I'm sitting down for a one-on-one, I always start by saying, I just love to know how I can promote you because I really love what you're up to, or whatever. And it's almost impossible to, well, let me say it another way. It's very rare that they don't eventually come around to asking me a similar thing. Yeah, and Leslie and Donald covered pretty much everything that I was going to say. Let's see. Oh yeah, yeah, it's an opportunity before the actual meat of the meeting starts. You've got somebody at your table or somebody on either side of you, and it's a really good time to open up conversation so that you get to know a lot about them, and you get a good database on what it is that they're up to that Gia might be able to plug into. So it can be a very fertile time if we make it that. So that's it for now.
And Susan Kibbe is a very fertile networker. I've seen her in action. We went to a seminar together, I think it was in Oregon or something like that, where we knew nobody. And within a very short period of time, she knew everybody, and I still knew nobody. Really, really, really good, I'm telling you, for sure. Well, Susan, we're going to come back to you, I'm sure, in a minute. And Donald, I want to come over to you. We're talking about free, and then some of them cost money. I know BNI is fairly expensive. Can you talk about what it costs to belong to networking groups?
It varies. The Chamber of Commerce in my area is about $35 a month. But they have actually a reduced rate they have a special thing for home business entrepreneurs. So, or mothers or different things, but they have a special rating for that. Most BNI, although you will be paying a year in advance, it'll run between probably around $50 to $70 a month, depending on whether you pay for 2 years at once or 1 year and whether you're paying your initiation. What you get for that
One question, do you also buy your lunch or breakfast on top of that?
It depends. In my BNI meeting, there's no dinner, no breakfast, there's nothing.
Okay.
It's a very tightly scripted hour and a half. There's no time to eat. We're doing something, finding out about somebody, listening or participating all the time. And the key thing for those events is, especially when you're coming as a guest, is to go early and start meeting people. And almost all of them will give you a packet of business cards for everybody that's in the chapter, so that you can start your process of meeting people and finding out who people are. And that's, if you're not given one, ask for one. Mm-hmm. There's usually a book of business cards, so you grab all the business cards. These people are open to hearing about what you do, and especially for you to understand what they do. They understand that the more you know about them, the more likely you are to refer someone to them. So it's not like a cold call anymore. You're already introduced. It's all open.
Right, right.
The costs can vary quite a bit. As I said, like in my area, there's probably 20 BNI chapters, and I could go every day of every morning of the week, and I can go to at least two meetings of one chapter for free. So at least I have a chance to be visible and collect cards, and people find out about me. And then depending on what I follow up with, depends on what goes on after that.
Susan? Okay, go ahead.
See something, when I decided to leave BNI, I was in it for quite a few years, and it really wasn't a good match. But I don't know if all the BNIs do this, but if it's not in your budget, but you want to be around this very vital, vibrant group of business people from all different walks of life, you can put yourself on a substitute list. So that, because when you can't show up, you better have a substitute to give your spiel, and they'll give it to you. As a substitute, I would get a script to read for the person who couldn't be there for whatever reason. And it could be at the very last minute, so it could be kind of random, but it's an extremely fertile ground. So it's random and it's not regular. It's free, and you come away with a packet, and you get to speak. You get to do your spiel, even though you're not a member, and you never will be.
So you use the term free again, and I like that a lot. But you also said twice now, not a good fit. And so I think it's important to explain that you can go to a lot of these meetings free to see if you feel good about it. Am I right, Leslie?
Yes. Yes, that's it's a great way to. It may be that particular group doesn't feel right, or it may be that you're not comfortable with the scripted quality, and the exclusivity and the money, so, in terms of BNI or the chamber's a little less scripted, it seems. But I think Susan's right. There's other ways to become part of, a network and yet not be paying. So I think, did I answer that?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that's important to know is that different chapters will have different rules about that. So you may not be able to be a professional substitute.
Okay.
They may only allow you to come twice. But when you're invited, to be a sub, that gives you the permission to do it unless you hear from the leadership and say, we don't want you there anymore for that purpose.
Well, yeah, they're sensitive to people trying to do BNI without paying for BNI is the deal.
That's right.
So,
And you may not be able to talk about yourself being a sub. You may only be able to talk about the person you're substituting for.
Right.
But you have to remember is the open networking time before and after are really where you want to meet and develop relationships with people and then take that outside and do one-to-ones afterwards. So even if you're not able to talk about what you do, just know that it's natural that people are going to want to know about you.
Okay. So let me just say this. We're talking a lot, you're hearing a lot about BNI, and it's Business Networking International, is what I think that means. That would be one of the most structured networking groups you can be with. They have lots of rules, it's very structured, and you have to live by the rules, compared to a meetup, which is the total opposite of BNI. And so there's a lot of ways to do networking in between being very structured and being very open. So it might depend on your personality. For me, I don't like structure so much. I mean, I like the freedom. So BNI probably wouldn't be a good fit for me, whereas a meetup might be better for me, or something in between. And all of those ideas all of those kinds of networking opportunities are out there. You just have to search for it. And as Leslie was talking about, was just take a look at meetups in your area, and you might find something that'll be perfect or that will lead you to something. But I want to move now to the next topic, and this is really important. I can remember when I was young and I had a business, and I was going to go to a networking meeting, and as a young person, my mindset was, how am I going to get all of these people to buy what I had to offer? Not knowing what a networking, I was really immature at the time. And that's the total opposite of how you should approach a networking meeting. And I found out very quickly about that. So Donald and Leslie and Susan, in BNI, like I said, it's probably one of the biggest in the world, and it's one of the most structured, and they have something called giver's gain. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, the giver's gain is the idea is that what you give will come back to you. So instead of me going and looking for who am I going to sell to, it's who I can match. Now, because I've been in BNI, I was there for about 3 years, I really had a chance to practice and learn it. And now when I go to any other event, I can use that practice and that knowledge to multiply what I'm able to do. As an example of this, I talk often, I've talking about, walking my dog. Well, I was walking my dog today and met somebody, and we started talking, and I found out more and more and more and more about them. And that's led to me referring them. Well, actually yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was at a vendor fair at my wife's booth, and I met some people that are looking for a realtor or looking for mortgage or whatever. And I'm now the person that they can, I connected them with people. So now they have a positive attitude about me, and I have an opening to talk about other things. So it's what I'm giving to people that creates a relationship that allows me to do more later. Today it was, their dog has inflammation, and I've got some solutions for that and some charts and stuff. I've got PDFs of things. I've given them the name of my holistic veterinarian, the name of where we get our dog food and stuff like that. So I've been neighborly.
Right.
And they're really interested in talking to me about the other things that I do.
Well, that's interesting. What I feel like you're doing is you're building your own network group.
Exactly.
So you have a group of people who now you're referring to each other, and that's another thing that's not so structured, but it's such a great way to build relationships and your connection. And it's really about connecting people to what they need.
Exactly.
You become your relationship with them. It's amazing. Leslie, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I'd like to say that, it's becoming very visible. There goes my cat. Becoming very visible as someone who has connections, and it does. You become, the go-to person. Oh, I'll ask Leslie. Oh, I'll ask Donald. He might know. Those are besides being neighborly, it's the core of the giver's gain idea, which is essentially how do you participate in a community? You go to a community hoping they're going to, fill your cup, or do you go to the community with your cup full to offer? And it's a very different feel when you're there. You can feel when people are a little desperate at any of these groups.
That was me.
Yeah, and it's definitely off-putting. You just and they may even say things like, "I'm really looking for work. Do you have any work?" or and it's just not it's not the way that we as humans respond well.
Mm-hmm.
We respond well when someone comes with something to offer us. Whether it's a free session or a free evaluation of whatever, or I get to, whatever it is that we bring to the group. Those are really, that's the mindset. It's like, do I go with my cup full? What can I bring to this meeting? What can I bring to this gathering? Because we all know the person who comes to the potluck and never brings anything. And we're kind of like, how about that? So, I think you hit the nail on the head, as far as, the relationship is a beneficial one for everyone when you bring something to the group.
Leslie, let me ask you this question. How long does it feel to get comfortable in a group? Is that different for every group, or does it depend on you?
I think both of those things are true.
Mm-hmm.
It's some groups, it takes a little while to, to feel like you understand it. For example, the more structured ones, it takes a little while to understand the order and what people are doing. The unstructured ones, it may take a little while if you're speaking of how long before there's a return, how much investment of time, what's your return on that investment. It really is I'm guessing a huge difference. I mean, some people, obviously, I think there's personality there. But I think if you're really comfortable with freewheeling, and you just keep coming back, that's also another way to say that I'm interested in you, the group.
Well, that leads us to the last question I'm going to ask you guys is someone going into a networking situation, how long does it take, if you can maybe give some idea, how long does it take for this to work, to be able to give, and then start to reap the rewards of the giving, or having your business begin to build, or customers be interested in your products? How long does that take?
Well, how long does it take to become a hairstylist whose calendar is full? It's usually 3 years.
Okay.
So I think that a really structured group, it probably does take a couple of years for it to really get legs. But that's not the only thing you're doing in your business.
Right. That's right.
It's just one of your strategies. And I think you have to have more than one quiver, or more than one arrow in your quiver, I should say. You have to have several strategies that work for you. This isn't for everybody. Boosts are better for some people. It's really finding the tool that works, and then within that, you're going to find a lot of variety. And you may find the one person who's, as we all know, you may find that one key person who says, "Oh my gosh, I love this," and turns all of her friends on. And there you go. And you're always looking for someone whose openness and, that you've really connected, and you nurture that. And it won't be long before you do find a key person. B&I tends to not artificially do it, but by having categories and having, sort of health team or financial team within the group, tends to, push people toward getting to know each other, and requires, to a certain extent, that you pay attention and you do refer.
Mhm.
That's part of its structure, and that's why it tends to work in the more beneficially, I would say. But I say it's only one of your strategies. I wouldn't abandon all your others.
Right. I have two friends. One of my friends loves networking meetings, loves to go, has a blast, and I have another friend who goes to networking meetings and hates it.
Huh.
Who do you think does the best?
Well, clearly, the person.
Pretty easy, right? So if you find something, if you find a group that you really like, it's probably going to be a lot faster when things start to happen. You're helping them, they're helping you. If you find a group you're not so, probably going to take longer.
Yeah, and if you bring something like, you bring, a skill at pickleball, eventually, you get admired. You're developing, a credibility. That can be translated, in anything that you're doing. And you bring something really fun to the group, whether it's, no matter what it is. So it's a good idea to start with something that you like, obviously.
Yeah, good advice. Susan?
Yeah, so I think the answer to your question is there's no one answer, because I've had people respond instantly. Like some guy, this was years ago, I happened to have a harmonizer with me, and he said, my wife works in a den of electromagnetic radiation, and she's got a cell phone on each ear, and I feel terrible when I walk, whatever. Anyway, I said, why don't you take this home harmonizer with you, take it home. He put it in his hand, and he put it in his pocket, and he said, oh my gosh, he felt something instantly. So I never met him before. That was like that. That doesn't happen all that often. In other instances, because you show up regularly, and some people just need to hear it over and over again, and then at some point they'll say, you know what? That stuff you've been talking about, I really want to know more about that. Let's do a one-on-one. It's just the whole gamut of time frames until something clicks. And I want to say one other thing. If you do get to go to, for example, a BNI meeting as a sub or anywhere, and you come home with a packet of business cards with little notes on them, that's a way to find people. You've got this packet, you know where you got it. If you decide to call those people, hey, I got your card at the, so we had that little conversation. So you have this, you don't even have to go out and look, because you came home with this stack of cards from people that they may or may not remember you, but they'll be flattered that you remembered them. So.
Good point. Very good.
And another really great thing to do with those cards when you come home is, if you met at one group and you mention, oh, I go to another group, then you turn around and you email them and say, would you like to be a guest at my whatever? Mm-hmm. And you begin to develop more layers of networking. And also, even if sometimes I'll just say, it was really great to talk with you. I'm wondering, something, and then just start an email conversation, and, or even just out and out ask for a one-to-one because you're interested. It's, you can use it in many ways. But Susan's right. You come home with this ready group of cards. I tend to I keep them and I will especially people I really connect to. We'll do a one-to-one, just to because what goes around comes around. When I find someone who's perfect for someone I know, I'm sure that it might not come straight back from that person, but it will come into my universe.
Right. Good one. Well,
that's actually something I wanted to reiterate, is the idea of momentum. So if I'm going to networking meetings and starting to meet people and talking about what, I'm meeting and doing something, I'm moving, I'm creating movement, that creates an opening for that intention to come back to me in other ways. So what Susan Kibbe was talking about, she talked to a person and it was instant. It could have been from any kind of a networking. It may not have even been that. They just came into her space because she was projecting that energy.
Right, right. I think Brenda has a question or a comment. Brenda? Let me unmute you.
I agree with, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. I agree with Donna, Susan, and Leslie. I was curious to find out, Donna said he paid $50 a month for his BNI. The ones in Arizona is $1,000 to $1,200. And you have to be interviewed by several people. And I have met several. My competition that I had, there were several doctors and there were several chiropractic and health. And it was very difficult. I went to like about 5, 6 for about 3 free meetings, as Donald said. And you pay $5 for breakfast. And after the 6th one, and I was turned down because I was always competing with another person that was there. And eventually I just had my $1,000 sent back to me. So I was kind of curious. Now I have the books that I am studying from for my own. And I think that is helping me out a lot more than going to the BNI meetings. And then you have to be interviewed by a lot of people. And if there's another person who have health there, unless you're approved by 2 top people there, you don't get in. You have to wait for another chapter to open up. And after 6 times, I just gave up of trying to go into a new chapter. And then there's somebody, because somebody knows someone else who had it. So I used in the books, and I felt the books was very good to me. So Susan and Leslie and Donna are right on point with BNI. Certain places, they're very expensive, especially Arizona.
Okay.
And when I said, it's $75 a month, if, 10 months, that's $750 or $800 or $1,000, it adds up.
Yeah.
It depends on, your initiation may be $200. And then the dues for the year, Leslie, I don't remember what the dues are anymore.
$195 is your first fee just to apply, and then it's $595
Per year.
This year, and you can realize substantial savings by paying $895 for 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So in each area has their own pricing that they'll use. So that's always going to vary. But the idea is, if it's a meeting that's close to your, if I'm a massage therapist and everybody's got a massage therapist, if it's close to me, at least I can go there and collect business cards and start to network.
Right, right, right.
And I can go as a guest. And I can look in advance to see which, they will have lists of their members online, so I can see which ones don't have a massage therapist or don't have an environmental consultant, which of course nobody has. So, you can choose your subject that you're talking about, and then, that might make it easier for that. In any case, meeting the people and making connections is always going to be helpful.
Right.
There are many times when, say, there's 2 lawyers in a group, and one specializes in like corporate law and the other one specializes in divorce, family law, and they can refer with each other. They don't want to do each other's things. So you have to find somebody who's open enough to say, look, there's a part of being a doctor or being a massage therapist I'd like to do, and the other part I don't. Why don't we split this up?
I just noticed somebody, Bill. How are you, Bill? Bill, I don't know if you guys can see Bill there, but Bill, he is a pickleball player, and he's one of the best pickleball players here in our area. And I'm so glad he's on with us tonight. I was looking at it, trying, who is this guy? And Bill's a good example of networking and doing something you love to do. I love to play pickleball, and I've been playing probably a year and a half. And and not really out there, just out there having fun. And then Bill had a shoulder problem, and it was bad. 7 months of really going to doctors and going and having problems. And I think what he said one day, he says, "John, are you ever going to tell me about that stuff?" Do you remember that, Bill? So I put a smart strip on his arm, and 2 days later that problem went away, and now he's involved with Gia Wellness. And now he's doing the same thing. He's just going out there and networking and having a blast, and people are asking him what's going on. Bill, I just wanted to welcome you and have everybody else say hello. Welcome tonight. Glad you can make it. Well, we are just about at the end. Any burning questions or thoughts before we go? You guys did a great job tonight. Thank you so much. Anybody have a question or thought before we go? All righty. Kedzie.
I was just going to say one thing. I've done a lot of networking, and a long time ago, unfortunately this group is no longer together, but I thought this was a really cool model. You could buy, it wasn't structured in the sense of BNI. We would give our commercials, but it loose structure, and you could join, or you could just pay a little bit more, a higher fee each time you went. And there was always food involved, so it was either the fee was mostly to cover the food for the year, or you'd pay as you go. And the cool thing was, for me, I still have, I think these will be lifelong friends. I have made friends from this group so long ago, and I bought a block of presentations. So they didn't have it set up where you had a list and members only got to be presenters. You basically set up a little booth, and then you had 5 or 10 minutes to present to the crowd as they're eating and drinking. So it's kind of loose, and it was always at a different restaurant. So you never knew what kind of setup you were going to have. So it was a little bit interesting. But I think I bought a block of 6 presentations, and I thought, hey, if this really works, I mean, this is a long time ago. We're talking 10, 11 years ago. And then if this works, I think I'll join the group, right? Well, it was amazing to be that consistent. They saw me week after week. I think I did 7 in a row, and it was a deal. They gave, if you bought X number, you got a cheaper deal and all that. It was pretty amazing. I've never seen another group do that way. The group I'm involved in now is every other week, and I'm the program director now. And so each person gets their presentation every other week, in a rolling kind of a membership type drive. And there's so many different kinds of groups. You just, as you guys said, you did such a great job. You find what works for you. You find what you like. You find the people you like. If you can't stand the people, you're not going to want to go. You're going to wake up that day going, I don't want to see so-and-so. I don't want to hear that. You're just going to have a negative attitude. You're going to want to really like the people that you're going to hang with and do business with.
True story. Well, I want to thank Donald and Susan and Leslie. Great job tonight. A lot of great information. We've recorded this, so when people are asking you out there, what about networking? Now you'll have a video that you can send them. Thanks so much for doing that. Now next week, I think probably next week to me is going to be one of the most important pathways to abundance that we're going to do, and it's going to be all about meetings, home meetings specifically. We're going to talk about everything possible about how to host a great party or meeting so that you can introduce Gia to as many people as possible. We're going to talk about meeting etiquette, how to present. It's going to be really, really good. So I'm going to invite all of you to come back and then invite everybody you know to be with us next Monday night. Thanks to all of you. It's a great time to be a part of Gia. Thank you. Have a great week.
Great night.
Bye.